find anything at all in my last review of Arch that made me think, okay, well, maybe we need to rethink that. There were 2 sets of knit fix PRs that were still pending that I just merged, like during the security, like 4 minutes ago. And there is 1 remaining bug on Arch, issue on Arch that was filed by Colin 18 hours ago from the train. Colin, do you want to turn that into a pull request, or shall I?
Sorry, Brad?
Do you want to turn that into a PR, or shall I?
I'm happy for you to turn it into a PR. Some of it possibly needs thinking about. Some of it is obvious.
Because like the ones that I've spot checked in the like 3 minutes since I saw this, all seem perfectly reasonable, and
I think most of it is pretty straightforward, and it's just little things that got overlooked, and someone spotted them.
We'll pass through these, turn them into a PR, and then file a new issue on anything that needs discussion that I don't think just needs to, go into the PR, right? That's the...
Yeah, I don't think there's too much that needs discussion, although I think there'll probably be a few things.
Just in interest of time, while we have people in person, Colin, are there any particular points that you do believe need discussion that you would like to highlight here if we want to get ahead of that?
Yeah, let me have a look what's in it.
We're pretty good on time, so we may as well use it wisely.
I mean, we've been 10 minutes in and we're done, always, right?
Yeah.
Does everybody have the link to the issue that Colin filed? I can drop it into the chat window here.
Number 395.
395, yeah. Yeah, we should probably just go straight down the list.
Yep. Matter of fact, let me go ahead and open an editor.
Yep. It's live. Do it live.
You want to share your screen, Brian, so we can watch you type?
Yes, I do, but just a second. Let me remember. I've spent the last 3 weeks furiously coding C++ on the tech island, so I forget how to use Git. So give me a second. And
I never learned how to use Git. So. I never learned how to use Git in the first place. So. This is why I just put it all in one big block of text.
Secret.
That looks like Git's being pretty reasonable. Crap. What's my password?
You work at Google. You know everyone's passwords, right? Part of you organize.
The problem is you have so many passwords. How do you remember which one's yours?
Exactly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. Cool. This looks good. Bug number is 395.
If you want to try to get your conferencing system on board, there is an option in the window that says copy meeting link. You can see if that gives you something that you can plug into your room system.
Where is that copy?
If you at the bottom of the window, there's like a bunch of little icons for muting and video and such. And there's one that's got 3 dots.
Cool. Let me try that.
Okay, am I still on?
Yes, you are, and we see your editor window.
You can see my editor window. Okay. For some reason, I cannot see any of you. Oh, can I move this thing? Okay, now we go.
Now we see a terminal window.
Here we are. So Section 1, first paragraph. So this one has already been fixed by Phil's PR.
Okay.
Section 2.1.
Yeah, you can tell I was looking at formatted text.
Yeah.
Event-driven API. Yes, that one.
Oh, yeah, this is fine.
Yeah, this just confused me because it's like, okay, some things are blocking. No, they're asynchronous. No, we're doing this asynchronously.
Yeah. Actually, now now the grammar is correct.
Yeah.
1, fourth para. Much simpler interaction model. Simple case if you don't care about performance.
Yeah, maybe more natural.
Yeah. Yep.
I find callbacks simple, but then more natural.
Easy to work with. Oh, let's talk about framers.
Famous.
And this was the last thing left over from also from Gory's issue, where he was thinking whether we should talk about protocols or transport services here with the framers. I think both is slightly wrong, but I'm not sure what's the right thing to do there.
I was trying to get on the call. He needed the coordinates reset, so we might need him. We could maybe circle back to this in a few minutes.
This is 2.2 second paragraph. Right?
Yeah, we're what we're looking at right here.
Right. So your comment is
It seems that it's suggesting that the applications usually defined framers.
They usually don't, right? So
They don't. It's usually implied by the protocol they select.
right. Essentially, the application layer protocol that you're using as a transport will natively support it.
so the issue is that this goes into too much detail about framers too early
To be misleading, yeah.
to be misleading. Can we? Hold on.
Or do we need
Let me
to
do
move
this.
stuff back?
Huh?
Like, do we need to move any of the text lower down, or is the text already covered below and we just need to get rid of
I
it?
think we need to do this. I think we need to make that go away.
There you go.
And add it here. I just typed paradigm, son of a bitch. That's not good.
Does it really belong here, or doesn't it belong into the bullet list above?
You know, the bullet list above is why messengers are cool. And then we need to talk about what happens if you're stuck in Streamland.
But what we probably want to say is the choice of protocol implies that there is a framer. And rather than saying you can define framers, it's like the protocol you've picked will imply that there is a framer. And in rare cases, you can define one yourself.
So I think there's probably going to be a couple different cases. Sometimes your transport protocol, the literal transport protocol, like it's UDP or it's Quick, will literally have messages, and then you don't do anything. Sometimes you have in your stack something like HTTP, which effectively gives you messages and can be viewed as a transport, although is not always viewed as a classical transport.
Yes.
And the other cases are you then need to add your own framer.
Yes. The typical case is probably that you're using an existing transport-like protocol, like HTTP, for example, and there is a framer implied by that choice, and you don't implement it. The way the text was written, it seemed to imply that you as an application programmer write the framers. But then there's an option to write framers, but usually they're supplied by the stack.
Yes.
How about this text right here? So this is after the, everybody can read this, right? This is big enough?
Some protocols which natively use a stream abstraction. Do you mean 4 protocols instead of some protocols?
And then you can go down and read about framers down there, and then the rest of this just goes away.
Yeah.
I would remove the words application layer.
Yeah.
Just framers.
Taps. We don't call it taps. We call it transport services, but
Just framers.
just framers.
Okay, done.
Or actually, do we call it message framers below? No, it's just framers. Yeah, it's fine. Just leave it.
Framers. Good. Next. Figure 4, which is that?
Or do we do
Scrolling down to the next figure.
2 second paragraph?
Second paragraph. This is just a phrasing knit.
Oh, 3-2.
API.
Where is 3-2? This is 3. Is conference. 1, 2. Connection objects. What? Okay, fine.
Hello, Gory.
It just wasn't clear what constraint checksums were. Partial check.
So we should probably never use UDP Lite as an example because it just confuses people.
It should probably just be partial instead of constrained.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, okay. Does that fix the problem?
Yeah, I mean, possibly say specify preference to use a partial checksum over part of the packet or something. But if constraint checksums was not obvious, it wasn't clear quite what it meant.
Sure. Go with that.
That's good. That's a good change.
Yeah. Figure 4. I guess is this figure. No, that's figure 3.
Figure 4 is the lifetime of a connection. Yeah, so this is one that I reworked when I was sitting down with Mary at
Better
the
now.
interim.
That's changed from the one I had yesterday. That's good.
Yeah, and we had specifically not shown send and receive calls, partly because this is named the lifetime of an object, and send and receive calls don't necessarily change your state machine, and it just got way too complicated to read.
Right. Yes. Yeah. I mean, so the fact it says lifetime of a connection is a reason not to have the send and receive calls. It's just that looking at it, most of the things which are discussed in the rest of the documents are on here, except for send and receive calls and I guess events and that sort of thing.
Messages in their entirety are not on here, and they used to be, and that is very complicated.
Yeah, didn't we discuss to have a separate diagram for the send and receive part, or did we even add it?
So
We didn't.
we had talked about that, I remember. And I think when we tried to draw it, like if you just draw send and receive on a connection, it's a little bit silly because you have like connection with like message, send, receive.
I've tried to draw this thing like 3 times. But how about this ugliness right here?
I mean, it also doesn't show the message object at all, right? Which is
I've got a suggestion. Since I've just appeared, but why don't we just write in the caption we don't show the message object?
Sure.
works for me.
Do this. This is there's space.
Yeah, but that's really ugly.
I can
We can have an SVG, but you know, we don't want to delay publication on that one.
If you make a box around the message and put send and receive on the line, I think it's fine.
Yeah, but you don't want to put a box around it because the rest of the states of
Yeah, the rest of the states.
rather than
But the message
The problem.
message is also an object.
Put a partial box around it.
you should be on the arrow, like the listen and close and import and all that.
You can make it a little hat.
This is coming as close to literal bike shedding as I have experienced in recent memory.
I was just going to say that, but SDO work is often bike shedding. Like, you got to get the details right.
Feels closer to yak shaving to me.
We can certainly have a discussion about whether it's bike shedding or yak shaving.
I think it might be cat vacuuming.
So we show the endpoints and the properties for the pre-connection, so maybe we can show the message in a similar
So
way.
this is my suggestion.
Mm.
It's ugly.
Mm.
Puts the message in a beehive. This is beehiving. We're not bike shedding, we're beehiving.
Maybe put message kind of like local and remote endpoint just as a thing, and then have the send and receive on the arrow.
Would be better.
What?
Put the just message and send, and
Put message up
send
top.
on the arrow.
And I think don't put parentheses around send and receive. Just let them be. False.
Yeah. Oh, but then it doesn't look like a beehive anymore.
Yeah, I mean, can I ask a question? What?
Sorry,
Why
Gary,
is
you
it
forgot.
better?
The send and the receive along the arrow. So put them a little bit to the left.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Kind of like listen is next to the arrow. When's it listen?
Oh, you want it next to the arrow?
That's what Philip is asking for.
I did not understand. I did not.
Which is what we do for like listen and close on the board.
Yeah, are they? Yeah, and they're space one off the arrow is important.
You just
We
need
want to have a plus / less before the message as we do it for endpoint and properties.
Those are connecting to a line.
I know, but do we want to kind of have the same pattern there?
I think we would get rid of the we get rid of the lines and just have message float.
Don't you like connection ready? You need a V, a point on your arrow, right?
You could also have bidirectional arrows, right?
Yeah, you want a V, arrows.
Yeah, I think you should have arrows. This was what I was going to say as well.
Just to piss everyone off. There we go. We're good.
It's fun drawing ASCII out on an interim call.
See, this is how you know we're getting ready for working group last call.
This is.
I still like the original better.
Moving on.
I agree with Corey, but I can accept this one.
I also agree, but I think that the benefit of having the concept on the diagram is like the benefit. It's okay to have it slightly uglier if it answers the question, where are messages?
Yep.
You can point and say there are messages. They happen and established.
Yeah,
I think the fact that the question has come up multiple times.
the transition's less obvious, so I don't like it.
Which is why I removed the arrows. Because the arrows are state transitions.
They're not, because local endpoints are pointing at pre-connection.
How about this?
Oh.
No.
The colon.
Here we go. Another line.
That's worse.
Worse. Okay. I would say this is an errorless
Yeah. And then
line. And maybe stick a plus right there.
transport properties errorless. Make it errorless also onto pre-connection.
Yep.
For the last bike shedding, move message one line down. Then I think it's.
The way?
Yeah, move message down one line so it's not hanging out.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like it's, you take established and then you divide by message. Good.
Maybe center established.
Moving on before anybody else has an opinion. Connection related objects.
Connections are not connections.
Yeah.
Just the title of the section.
Do we use we use the terminology elsewhere? Document.
Connections and related objects, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That. Good.
Capital R.
Probably capital, right? Yes. Everything else in this document we capitalize. We do title.
Right. Yeah. Yep. Good. 1-1.
All of those can be specified on pre-connection.
Yeah, so it's the bullet list in connection, in transport properties and connection properties and so on. Yes, this bullet list, right?
Yes.
So selection properties can be specified on a pre-connection. Connection properties can be changed on a connection.
But also on a
It
pre-connection.
can be changed on a connection or a pre-connection, or it can also be changed.
Maybe rather than. Would you say they can be specified on pre-connection and changed on a connection?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It can also be specified on the connection, right? They can be both changed. If they are already specified, they can be changed. If they're not specified, they can be specified on the connection.
You can, we
Not
can
necessarily.
raise our hands and call a specification on the connection a change to the specification.
Because implicitly the default had been specified if you did not set it on pre-connection.
Okay, I can buy that.
Phew.
Wonderful.
But messages
Same for
cannot
message.
Message properties can also presumably default on a pre-connection or a connection,
Correct.
just on a particular message.
That's nice.
But can you actually do that?
Yes, that's the API lets you do that right now.
I thought you needed a message to specify this property.
You need a message to get the context, but not to specify the property. You can specify, you can set the property on the pre-connection.
Like I want to set everything.
Message.
Works as a default on messages for that pre-connection. It's not used for selection, but good.
Okay.
Specifies that a listener is created from a pre-connection. Doesn't say connection is created from a pre-connection or a listener. Should it?
Oh. Yeah.
It presumably should, yes.
What is the verb listener does to a pre-connection?
Well, it calls the received connection event. or received off.
Or just buy it. Or yeah, or just or by a listener. Connections can be created from a pre-connection or by a listener.
Fine.
Yep.
Levels.
And it turns out we already have a verb generates, which is
the next sentence, so it becomes clear fairly quickly.
right. Yeah. Okay. So it's fine. An endpoint can be specified at various levels.
Which the levels is explained in the rest of the sentence, host name and address. But I agree that that may not be an obvious term.
Scopes.
Possibly levels of abstraction.
Yeah.
Or by various attributes. But what you really do is you specify a bunch of attributes for the endpoint, and then
Yeah, let's talk about levels of abstraction as opposed to width of scope.
And then we very nicely have abstract versus concrete, which is good. Beautiful.
Okay.
And that's the next point from Colin is the exact same thing. We just fixed it. Good.
Yeah. Wi-Fi Ethernet connection. Yes. Didn't you know in the future all networks are Ethernet? All restaurants are Taco Bell. There we go. Done. Connection property should be specified in pre-connection prior exception. Maybe. Should we be like? Are we certain about the 2119 language here?
Yeah, I think we just make it a can. Right.
How many capital Mays do I have? 4.
I mean, I think what we're saying here is you can specify the connection properties on a pre-connection, and then you can change them on a connection.
Yeah, maybe we should not have any
Say can for both of them.
or may here.
It's not can be modified later, because that suggests they can be modified on the pre-connection later.
Right.
So connection purposes are specified in pre-connection prior to connection establishment. And
Be modified on the connection later.
yes. And I would say and rather than but.
Yep.
Nice.
Can somebody file an issue to scrub 2119 language from Arch?
We had done a pass previously. I had gone over that in a fair amount of depth with Corey.
Okay. So we don't necessarily want to get rid of all of it, but in this case, we really don't need it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. 412. Changes. Okay, protocol.
I can imagine changing something on the connection that would cause a path to stop working, which would then presumably affect path selection. You said don't fragment, and that
Like you
fails.
I would be fine with just removing that, and if an application really wants to use this for path selection later on, or implementation wants to do that, it's fine, but I would not expect.
Yeah, I would actually drop this as well. I think that this we don't need to specify at this level in the architecture.
Right. It's something that we
the important thing is right here.
Yeah.
Effort, right? The implementation can try. If the implementation decides that you wanted to shoot yourself in the foot and lets you do it, congratulations, you're in C++ land. If the implementation won't actually let you build the code, if you try to do that, then congratulations, you're in Rust land.
I mean, presumably there are properties you could set, you could successfully set them, but that would then make your path fail.
And here I think we explicitly want to say in the architecture, this is best effort. And an implementation may decide that path integrity is more important than application preference in that case, or it might make the alternate.
The application may not be able to, the stack may not be able to tell that changing this property will cause the path to become unviable.
Right, but so the question is that, like, I mean, we're way down in the weeds of why an application might want to do this, right?
Right.
Like, so generally, the 99.9% case is you set the properties at pre-establishment time and you're done.
Yes.
So, like, this is you've already kind of broken the glass and you're starting to mess with the innards in a way that unexpected things will happen to you. So I think that essentially explicitly making clear that, hey, if you're starting to mess around with connection properties on an established connection, the implementation can basically just do what it wants. I think that it is important to leave this as undefined behavior.
Yeah, I mean, I think just say take effect on a best effort basis makes sense. It's just the last sentence which I wasn't convinced by.
Excellent. Look, another framers.
Skips ahead here, haven't we?
Yeah, shouldn't we be on
4.3 initiate.
Or no,
Wait,
4.3.
somehow I selected something that was wrong.
We're on initiate.
Yeah, I don't know why I selected that one. Okay. Initiate.
Do you
It's sort of a
special establish
for
a local
example,
state such as reserving a local port?
Yeah, I mean, the example here is presumably things like UDP, which are connectionless. So it doesn't actually do
register
anything,
the
just
system.
yeah.
This.
Yeah, or possibly for other protocols, for example, UDP, this will just establish local state or something like that. If it doesn't do anything and you're trying to initiate, what are you doing? Is this illicit? No.
Because there are so many connectionless protocols that aren't UDP. Okay, cool. Yeah, this is cumbersome.
Yeah.
It's like a legal document.
I recognize my own hand in that. But like, if we blame that sentence is mine. This is better. Listeners by default register with multiple paths and protocol, less constrained by selection properties. Yes.
So listeners by default register with multiple paths. Yeah.
I mean, if you give a fully constrained local endpoint, it will only pick one.
Yeah.
The endpoints bracket S.
Yeah. I was wondering whether I should do that. Okay, rendezvous. Yes, this description could be generalized. Can you generate this text on the fly? Or shall we shall we punt this to you, Colin?
Yeah, punt that one to me.
Okay. Can somebody file an issue for Colin on that?
I can do that.
Cool, thanks.
Somebody can work GitHub.
Boundaries of a message. So we should actually cut all of this text here and replace it with some pointer to framers.
Mhm.
Or actually just cut it. Let me read what framer says. I think we can cut it completely.
We can.
Okay.
That was easy. Properties can be used to annotate specific messages. Yeah, great. Can be used to annotate messages or to control how messages are sent is actually what the message properties are for, right? Are there any message properties that aren't basically about how you send the message?
Well, I mean, how you send the message, I think, is broad enough because it can include both the things that go on the wire in how you send it and the things that do not go on the wire in how you send it. Right? You have like, oh, this
Right.
impacts my timing or my ordering, whereas this other thing impacts the potentially like the ECN flags that get marked on the IP packet.
Yeah, I was going to sort of suggest sort of restructuring it a little. Message properties can be used to annotate messages or can be set on a pre-connection to specify defaults for future messages. Message properties might apply to how a message is sent, etc., etc. Then when receiving messages, message properties contain information about the received message.
Control the right word.
No, it isn't.
I mean,
I like specify how.
Like this is what you were arguing for, right, Colin? Oh no, I'm rapping when I'm not supposed to be rapping. That's another thing. Do we want to actually have one PR that just rewraps all the text in this document? Or do we want to keep, like the other documents actually keep to 80 columns? This is a different yak to shave, but it also means that all outstanding PRs have to be in and merged and nobody has to have anything branched because it'll break the merge if we reflow
That is something we can do
at the end.
later in the process. Like we can do that during or after working group last call.
and the RFC editor can worry about if they care.
I still don't like annotate.
I think we should start a thread on IETF at IETF.org about.
Okay, so
Colin.
so, Brian, these is spelled
Annotate.
correctly. Yes.
Oh yeah, well that would be good to get right.
Yeah, I agree with Gory. So they can, yeah, annotate. Uh, can be used to define how specific messages should be sent.
Well,
Or,
Yep.
uh,
There are message properties that are not related to sending, right?
so
Like
this is why I
final.
went back to control message transmission because
yeah.
control message transmission is the superset of all of the things. Not really control, hint.
Or I mean, you could say say, like specify details about message transmission,
That's fine.
right? Because that's what they're doing. Too many specifics. They can be specified directly on a message or can be set on a pre-connection or connection as defaults and get rid of two specified defaults just as defaults.
That's also not a may.
Cool.
Oh. and this is now a duplicate.
Yes.
Good.
What is a partial message?
We've got partial messages, and it's the first time we've mentioned such a concept.
Well, maybe let's not call it a partial message, because I think a partial message is less of a noun. Like, it's not like it is a thing. You can just send something partially. It's more about how you send it rather than what the thing is.
Yeah, it's not clear to me that architecture needs to care about partial.
Let's.
Or we can just,
Implementation detail.
You can say, may the action should transmit a complete or partial message over a connection to the remote system.
You can just say message, and then you can essentially say that a call to send on a partial message followed by all the follow-up calls is one send action. Like at the level of the architecture, it's an action, not a method. And it might
At
be
the level of the architecture, you're sending something. At the level of the implementation, that may turn into, well, you're sending it in several pieces.
That's fine.
good. This list is not exhaustive. No list is exhaustive.
Like all lists, this list.
All lists.
Exhausting.
Yeah.
We should at least be able to say what categories of events exist. I mean, it's clearly not going to be an exhaustive list of events, but it should be an exhaustive list of types of events.
Right. Well, I mean, the other way to phrase this, which I think is probably the intention of that line, is just to say implementations can send other events that aren't on this list, but we don't even.
That is common to everything in this architecture, so we can
Yes.
actually.
So we don't need to say
But this is not about categories of events, not events.
Cool.
You still got the categories of events, not just categories of events.
Okay, then get rid
It
of
is a
that.
list of
Yeah.
ones.
Are they really categories? Connection ready, is that a category?
There's a bunch of events that relate to the fact that a connection is.
Right, now we're okay.
I'll cut it down from category to kind.
There you go. The following kinds of events can be. Get rid of that.
Or
Or great, love it.
Does this have errors?
Yeah, that's the next.
I mean, that was what I was
So
wondering about when I was reading it, actually. And then I thought, oh, it's just categories, sure. Either it's success or fail, and that's like same category, right?
Another category.
Yeah.
So error is handled
Maybe not.
both in wait. Error is part of a connection error is the connection being finished, and the message error is part of is also described in those specific ones. So
Yeah, that's
error
why I
is
thought
not-
categories is good, because that made it make sense for me.
Still okay with this now? Categories is still okay now?
I still don't understand category for connection ready and connection finished and connection received, but
So I think it allows the API to have essentially a family of specific events for different ways a connection can be finished in. It can be like, I finished with no error. I finished with this kind of error. I finished with that.
How about the following events can be delivered to an application?
No, because they're not.
Oh, because they're not events, they're the, yeah, right, sorry. I'll
sort of
retract it.
groups of related events.
either categories or kinds.
Or types.
They're not types.
Yeah, okay.
Categories is fine.
Aren't they state transitions? I mean, the following state transitions can generate events.
Mm-mm.
This message received doesn't change the state.
Yeah.
Receive changes state the thing that received the message. The entropy of the message is now contained within the receiver.
I don't know if state transitions.
It's too esoteric. Yes.
Yeah.
We should argue about categories or kinds.
Well, they're also classes of events. Sorry, just to add another word to the to the list of possibilities.
The thing is that category has a meaning, class has a meaning, kind has lesser, type has a meaning, kind doesn't have a meaning.
Kind sounds awkward in this in a normative specification.
Sorts of events.
Sorts of events, yes. Colors of events.
Flavors.
Events will have
Things.
following
The
smell.
following things can be delivered to an application.
Categories or kinds, make a choice, people.
Categories.
Huh?
Categories.
Categories. Moving on.
It's been with that long enough.
Close.
So for half-closed connections, and we have gone over this before, I think, so let's say if we still agree.
Yeah.
This particular notion of closing is not half-close. That half-close is expressed via in the API via stream. That's different from saying, I want to terminate my communication with you. So I don't know, do we want to go into the details of half-close at this level?
I really don't want to go into the details.
No, but I sort of read this as suggesting that you can't have closer connection.
Yeah, I think it's okay to add a statement that just says that half-closed connections are not supported.
Well,
I won't talk about this in the architecture at all, because I think there is a way in the interface to have closer connection by setting the connection to unidirectional at a certain point in time. So there are too many ways that potentially could do this, and I think we have to X out this really in the interface and don't talk about half close in the architecture. It's a corner case.
So should I basically then like make this less specific? Done with a connection.
I don't buy this unidirectional thing, but I think that's nitpicking, and
I don't agree with unidirectional either, but
because the idea of a half-closed connection is that it's something you can rely on happening, right?
Right.
Whereas we can't, because that excludes protocols that have stricter semantics.
Surely this depends on the protocol. Yeah.
You can call something a unidirectional connection and nothing will happen.
so
And I guess
we are assuming that being done using a connection implies that you can't do any more actions on it, such as sending or receiving.
We are explicitly, this language is explicitly intended to resolve this argument by not resolving the argument. I'm making it explicitly ambiguous here. Because this language down here very clearly is full close.
Yes.
And this language
doesn't allow half close.
basically says, hey, if you care about the details of half close, go read architecture or go read interface and implementation, which is what we want them to do.
Yes, but the close action doesn't do close. It is a full close.
totally agree with.
But if we're going to support half close, then we need to phrase this in a way that either suggests that that's possible or say half close is done using a different mechanism.
I would be more in favor of saying if we want to say anything at all, half close is a different mechanism.
For what it's worth, it's different in Berkeley sockets too, right? You have to use a shutdown call to get half closed.
Right. The notion of close is more of like an object action saying, I am throwing this thing away. I will never need to use it again by closing a socket.
So how should we resolve the reader confusion here?
I mean, it may be that this is an unfortunate bit of historical terminology. Like somebody decided to implement a thing that they then called half closed, which is really not the right way to describe it.
Not a
We
close.
just have to deal with that.
It's sending a fin. It's indicating that I have completed my message. And the fact that we have overloaded the TCP's only way of putting boundaries as a way of closing the connection is very TCP specific.
Does this added?
Do we really have to deal with this issue? I mean, the fact that we define close as a clear close doesn't prohibit adding something else.
Right.
Well, I kind of read this and went, so this is suggesting that you can't have close a connection. And maybe that's a reasonable thing to do, but it seemed to be implying a restriction without stating it.
I mean, I agree, but I don't see why that is a problem. I mean, why would we even have to say yes, you cannot half close a connection, or even stress it more? I mean, it's very clear, right? The way it's written. So
it's possible to have close a connection, and whether this was an accidentally ruling out the fact that half close was accidentally saying you couldn't have close, or intentionally saying.
Yeah, it's
In post sockets, we basically said half close is a weird beast and we don't care. Right? That was one of post sockets' opinions.
And even here, I think the stance of the way we actually have things written in API is that thing you call half close isn't half close. Stop calling it close. It's just sending the end of a message.
I mean, we could just put a sentence here that says the sort of equivalent of half closed is to signal what end of message or whatever it is.
Or maybe we could just say, like, this is distinct from indicating the end of a message upon sending, which can, send a fin.
Yeah, something like that's probably a better way of phrasing it.
Say, like, this is not the close you're looking for if you're looking for half close.
Yes.
That is elsewhere.
But suggest that there is a way of doing half close.
Right. To say this is distinct from it.
So what's the?
Can we not say that in the message part then? Is that when we are talking about these message things?
Well, I think if someone reads this, they're going to say that they're going to think that transport services doesn't support half close.
Again, I would say it really doesn't. Because the minute you start supporting half close, you rule out protocols that have stricter semantics. Can't use them, right? And there's no good reason for it. Or is there?
No, so Michael, it does support close.
We can loop back around on this and file an issue.
I can write text for that.
I want to actually get to the end of this PR and then we can come back to the half close thing, I think.
Yeah, let's put an issue for this one and come back to it. Yeah.
So next up,
Close versus a bot.
It's reset versus.
yeah, this is intended for. So I think it's I actually think it's clear that one of these is meant for normal and one is meant for abnormal because one's called close and one's called abort.
Yeah, but it's not clearly.
So
I mean, possibly just say this is used for abnormal connection, isn't it?
I mean, even though like there's a whole swath of the web just basically send TCP resets because they don't like state. But
yeah, but it shouldn't.
It shouldn't.
Right. An abnormal connection termination. That's also strange. What is an abnormal connection termination?
A connection termination that is not normal.
One that doesn't do the free handshake.
So I think I mean, the three-way handshake, right? Like we need to abstract a little bit away from TCP in the architecture, right? It's one that like do it fast and I don't care how screwed up stuff gets, as opposed to do it right.
Yeah.
Right. Like one of these is do it right, one of these is do it fast. Right. Abort might actually
abnormal.
drop like one perfectly reasonable way to do an abort, to implement an abort, is to drop the memory allocation in whatever the stack implementation is. And then, hey, if you get more packets, then the lower layer state machine will just handle it for you, right? Yep. So,
but then what you're trying to say is that this is a less preferred way of terminating a connection.
it is. You should be.
You should say rather than it's abnormal.
This is a not nice way to terminate connections.
Why are we even adding this? I mean,
I think it's actually
right?
This is possibly me with my I speak English natively hat on. I think that it's pretty clear from close and abort which is which.
I agree.
And yeah.
So can we the action here is no action?
So I would agree, except that it then defines what it means by them. It doesn't, when it's defining what it means, it doesn't say this is a normal close and this is an abnormal close.
The extra text was fine.
I think it's better without it personally.
Can we make it gray?
Call point of view, this is usually used when you want to immediately close the connection, not hold any state anymore.
Right.
Yeah,
That's something we should want to say.
that's much better.
That is fine.
Actually, the other effect that it will have is that, when you get your event for your connection was closed, it will come faster when you abort.
Yeah.
We really get a connection close event if you abort.
Can we say immediate termination instead of immediate close?
Yep.
That's better.
Much better, thank you. Pass selection. It's going to be 4-2-1, so this is going to be 4-2-1. Pass selection. That fix it?
No.
Yeah.
And I would get rid of the parentheses then if you say any.
Yeah. So, I mean, so we got candidate gathering, but path selection and protocol selection are different from candidate gathering.
Yeah.
If you're implementing ICE, you need to figure out what are your candidates, which are presumably your local endpoints. And that involves stun exchanges and that sort of thing. And then you can put that into the path selection process.
Yes.
So do we want to rename this?
Wait, I don't quite see the problem. That seems to include.
So candidate gathering is one of the things which happens before you do path selection. Path selection isn't part of candidate.
Yeah, so this is more candidate.
I mean, path choice, path selection, or
not gathering.
In the implementation draft, we basically call it sorting branches, or it's part of that.
Yeah, but there's finding the branches before sorting the branches.
Yes.
Yeah.
Separate things. Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Right. So we do candidate gathering and then candidate racing as two separate steps.
Yeah, there's candidate gathering, there's candidate selection, and there's racing.
So maybe path path identification. Well, so path, I guess path selection in this terminology. Well, so okay, Brian, if you zoom out to the overall structure of here,
Yeah.
we already have two sections here. We have one for candidate gathering, one for candidate racing. The candidate gathering is just candidate gathering is merely identifying things.
But that's not what the text says.
Right. Yeah. Inside, we then talk about.
Okay.
There's conceptually two things happening here. There's all of the things that you could possibly use, and then there's the ones that the application will let you use.
Yeah, it needs one more.
That can be one step, right? Because you have one step of, we call it path selection here. It's not selecting the one, it's selecting the set of paths that you are eligible to use based on the availability as well as the selection properties.
But if you're doing something like ICE, you need to figure out you need to gather your candidates first before and pass and exchange them with your peer before you can do the selection. They're separate steps.
Word selection. So, because I think it's selection for what? So what we are.
The word chosen also. Maybe that should be identifying.
Yes,
No,
right. So just the act of identifying.
But I think there are two acts here. There's identifying the possible paths, and then there's winnowing that down into the actual set of paths.
And what Tommy is saying is that, at least in his concept, those are the same action, because in his implementation, they're part of the same action. In a protocol like ICE, they are not necessarily, there are different phases. They are necessarily temporarily separated by the mechanics of the rendezvous protocol.
Well, and actually what I'm saying is that this section is referring to that first step, not the winnowing. It is just the gathering, which is
talks about selection, which is the winnowing.
Selection and selection are winnowing steps.
Well, no, that I think we are disagreeing on what the word selection here means, which I think is understandable, right? So it is selecting for what? Not selecting to use, but selecting to try or to send information about to another peer. It's selecting what is the set of things that I'm even willing to operate on or exchange to the other side or even try racing on. That is what that's
creating a candidate pool.
So
that's why it's gathering candidates.
So
how about renaming path selection into path candidate selection and protocol selection into protocol candidate selection?
Great.
Yeah.
I would do candidate path and candidate protocol, but
okay.
Fine too.
Is that good, Maria?
And in the later bits of the text.
You repeat it.
Yeah.
Huh?
Because it says path selection is, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
We good?
Yep.
Cool.
Candidate racing. Should we say?
Yeah, I mean, racing just implies that things are running all at once rather than being done in some defined order, which might be simultaneously or might be staggered. Or
Yeah, it's like candidate. It's the active part. It's the attempts. It's also
it's actively trying the candidates to see which ones work.
Or communicating with the peer to say, hey, do you like these? Yeah, it's all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But it's also racing in some sense, right? Because we take the one that comes back first.
I think the issue is that racing here is too specific to one of the parts of what you do, and this category should be broader.
Yes, because you might not be running two of them simultaneously to see which one succeeds first. You might be doing them in a staggered order based on some set of preferences.
So just testing?
Yeah. It's more than testing, right? Because if one of them works, you use it, and it's no longer a test. This is not a test.
I mean, selection might be the right word here.
Can we maybe find a different word for winnowing? Because literally, it's the first time I'm hearing this word ever today. I would not understand what it means.
We should not use the word winnow.
I think of it as maybe qualifying, sort of.
I mean, selection might be the or probing or.
It's more than probing.
Tried.
Attempted. They're connection establishment attempts. When we talk about it, actually, you look in the text or down, it's like, this is the act of attempting to establish or scheduling attempts to establish. Candidate establishment attempts?
I want to keep the word racing. I want to keep the word racing.
Okay.
But I want to make clear that we're redefining what racing means. That's what I'm trying to do here.
What's the word they use for like or whatever the right protocol is?
But checked for suitability is not good, right? Because that doesn't imply that you also select it if it works.
Yeah, checking and selection. That's, I think, what ICE uses.
Yeah, I was just looking up ICE to see what it is. Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
ICE talks about connectivity checks. And
Connectivity checks and then nomination.
Yeah.
I don't like nomination, but I like checks. Checking. Maybe it's.
Maybe it's the for suitability part that is a bit strange.
Yeah.
So does word racing appear in Happy Eyeballs?
Let's see. Pretty sure it does.
It doesn't appear in ICE.
It definitely does in Happy Eyeballs. What are the terms?
We already have that.
RFC is 8305. RFC.
How do we like this?
You need to remove the word while.
And get rid of for suitability.
Like dating, right? Trying and then choosing if it's good.
Swipe right on this TCP connection.
You happy with that?
A little clumsy, but I think it's better than it was.
I mean, this is a little bit laziness on my part. We do use racing elsewhere in the document.
Yeah, I don't. It's a little awkward. Like, what does it mean to attempt a candidate?
I think it's, and yeah, there's a part of speech problem. Your candidates connections is like connections to candidates may be attempted.
You're not necessarily going to use the same protocol that you are going to use on the connection. It's not really an attempt. It's a probe, actually.
Like I think checking is
Exactly.
checking for connectivity or whatever.
So, and it's not just connectivity, it's also like, does it, meet the, so this comes back to check for suitability, which is what I had here, I think.
Check for endpoint support and connectivity.
What was the first one?
Endpoint support.
It's not just endpoint support, it's path. Like it's like you don't want to specify what criteria the system is going to use. Right?
Makes
any,
sense to me
like,
that
it's,
there's a step after this to then connect.
Right, that's what it implies, which is not necessarily true.
For usability.
But again, are we
abilities. I mean, it's the problem.
But I mean,
Other ways to say suitability. We already have suitability.
establishment attempt may be performed?
but I mean, how wrong is it to say candidates may be checked for a given connection simultaneously without any for there? I mean, like, you don't have to specify that.
Yeah. I'm gonna put this in a PR, and we can continue arguing over the PR. Because
I'll give you a suggested text change there.
Huh?
Candidates for, there's a simple tweak to that, because it's like candidates may be checked. It's candidates for a given connection simultaneous.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's way better.
Maybe.
Finish later.
Yeah, we're good. Done. Moving on. Last one. Oh, we just added a process, which 424, that's 423, that's 424. Yeah.
Oh.
We're assuming a particular operating system model here.
That's wrong.
Hmm. Within a memory address space.
No.
In a context?
We're sorry. We've detected that you're running on a NUA machine. You can't run tabs. Stored properties implementation, such as cache protocol state, cache path state, and heuristics, may, given scope.
Oh gosh, that's super vague.
Just may be shared.
Just may be shared, yeah.
Yeah.
Or you share with a brackets EG. Give an example of something. You could do brackets and EG and do an example of a process. That's okay as an example.
We do have examples also, like we refer to like the application. You just say the application.
Just be shared within an application or across connections for an application. Or...
Yeah, just say that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, for this second one, you could just say, you should explicitly isolate some connections.
Yeah, I think just get rid. Yeah, just it was better with isolate some connections. Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
Maybe then at the beginning it should not be an example. It is actually the scope.
No, because you might actually have operating system stacks that share some of the cache information across multiple applications.
Right. Like you could have the connections being made in a separate daemon process that is actually managing all of them.
No browser manufacturer will touch that, and they will do their own isolation. But like the rest of the world,
This is also completely open-ended now, right? You run this, and your statistics may be shared. However big scope.
possible that someone will implement something like that.
I mean, can we just start this section by just saying, by default, properties may be shared, full stop?
I like the example.
Okay.
Okay, we are done, and we have 2 new issues filed. See how long it's been since I've rebuilt on this machine. 316.1 days. That doesn't seem. Oh no, yeah, no. I usually do stuff on my work laptop now.
Send out a PR for this.
I'll send out a PR for this.
And Colin and I can send out PRs for the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I can figure out how to do PR, I will send out a PR.
Favorite homework.
You can also just paste text into your issue.
Yeah.
It's actually super easy. What you can actually do here, let me show you.
In GitHub too.
Up front and push the right button that says create a PR.
Yeah,
The traditional professor thing, and that's one of my students.
So can we talk a little bit about schedule?
let's talk about schedule.
So
Easy copy.
Yeah. I can figure this out. I've done this.
Click on the doc. There's a little. You can edit this file, and then you change the file, and then down at the bottom of the thing here, you want to see create a new branch and start a log list.
Oh, that's far too easy, right? Yeah.
I'm not sure it can't go wrong.
It will totally go wrong, but we'll fix it. Please don't commit directly to master.
Okay.
So, Aaron.
yes. So everybody take a look at your calendars.
That's a different machine.
That doesn't surprise me. So our next, I would like to complete last call for our next conference call, which is scheduled for January 24th. You know, we've got the holidays, which roughly wipes out the next 2 weeks. But I am, so when I wanted to just see whether folks had an opinion about starting the last call over the holidays, or we could wait until like the second or third to do it.
I think anyone's going to do anything if you do start it over the holidays. So.
I think we start last call on like the 3rd or the 6th.
Okay, so if we start on the 6th and we give people 2 weeks.
20th.
Yeah.
I mean, if we think it's ready, we might as well just start it and make it longer.
Well,
so we always be encouraging people to be working over the Christmas holiday.
Yeah.
Land both of these.
That's when they have time to do IETF stuff. I mean, it's.
So we need to land both of the, or all 3 of these PRs then by Monday, right? If like realistically, I don't know, who's working on Monday? I'm working. I'm on call for work, so.
No, but to the extent that I am, it will be writing lecture notes. Yeah, I will do the PR I have over the weekend. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So
Yeah, we could.
I'm going to PR and submit quick, and then the half close thing will be quick too, and then we can turn the crank on Monday. I think.
So I think that's good, just because I think people are going to, if it requires any discussion for these PRs, people are going to start disappearing. So I think that's really good. But
I think our goal should be to land the PRs that we have as we have them, and then anything beyond that is a last call comment.
Yes.
I mean, the issues we have in the PRs now are quite small, right? It's
those are easy
things. So maybe this is
Small
things that we will get in the last call.
they're not so small that we were able to resolve them on the call, though. So
that's because they just need a little bit of thinking about what the text is. They're not
exactly.
I don't think they're controversial.
Okay.
It would have been appropriate as last call comments as well.
Yes. So what do you think of this idea? Suppose we start last call on the 30th. That way we don't lose that entire week. Well, I'm a little concerned. Well,
it's the entire week anyway, because no one's at work.
The whole week? I don't know.
Everyone's gone. At least in the UK, everyone is gone from now until the 6th of January.
Yeah.
Yep.
We get time off here.
Yeah, and the last one in the building, the department closed a couple of hours ago.
Okay, we'll run last call from the 6th through the 17th. I'm a little I'll tell you, I'm a little concerned that nobody with enough energy to give this a review who is not on this call and already like deeply in it. I would love to have some fresh eyes look at it in the working group last call, but It is what it is.
Fresh eyes there, and it has to go to IETF last call.
Yes. Well, I want to get there, right? Okay, fair enough. So we'll do that. Where are we on the interface?
I haven't looked at it in months.
No open issues on it.
Okay, so it needs
there's one open issue on it. Here it is. There's privacy
There's
considerations.
two issues. There's also we need privacy considerations updated.
Yeah, but that text is for implementation now. We should relabel that.
Oh, we should relabel. Okay.
The framers text is for implementation. 340.
Yep.
Good. So that fixes an API issue without even touching the text. That's awesome.
And then we do need a privacy consideration section. One thing.
Do we want to assign this to someone other than Chris Wood?
For Chris?
He was on earlier. I think he had to go.
Okay. Can you ping him in person?
Yeah. Yes. He is flying this afternoon.
Okay. So go to the airport.
Hmm?
Go to the airport. Put a laptop in his hands.
You do it on there.
Here's an idea. I think that Colin's close read super helpful, right? I think it gave us a chance to really go through a lot of details here to feel confident that it's ready for working group last call. It would be nice to do that for implementation before our next call. If
implementation or interface.
Interface.
I think that will be difficult for me before the end of January, looking at everything else I have.
Planning to do this for the API document until today. I didn't succeed, but it's still on the top of my to-do list.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm planning on doing it, but it's unlikely I'll get to it by the end of January.
My original idea, or at least the original idea from Singapore, was that this was going to be the architecture call, and I think it was, and I think it worked really well. And then the next call was going to be the interface call. And I think if we get like one or two good reviews in on that, and we can have sort of the same kind of discussion on interface that we had on architecture today, then we can turn around and like on the 20, right? Like, so the scheduling is weird for this call because like this is the last thing some of us are doing, right? If we do we can basically start the last call on the 24th, like right after the
on interface.
The interim, we can start the interface last call.
Yeah, I think that's tight, but
yeah, I also so my thinking is exactly along the lines of yours, Brian. But what I want to do is get a couple people to commit to do a close read. And it sounds like Colin's not going to have time before the call. Mary will do it. Is there somebody on this bridge who's not an author who can sign up to do a close read of the document before the 19th of January?
I will. I am not an author. I will read it.
I will read it.
Thank you, Kyle.
Okay. That addresses my anxiety about, because what I don't want to do is have a whole bunch of stuff, have multiple emails like Colin's come out of working group last call, because then it's going to take a lot of work for us to to get the revision done when we want to be turning our attention to the implementation document. So this is good. This works for me. So Kyle, Max, Miriam, don't not do it because you're an author. So do we want to accomplish everything that I had hoped to do on the call? Since we are gathered and we have another 30 minutes, is there anything about the interface doc that it's worth discussing now? Or should we just close early? Or talk about the implementation doc?
So I don't think there's anything to discuss on interface until we get two more close reads. But if we want to take the time for implementation, I can stop sharing
I think we're also.
So the question, the issue I raised about the how to organize the per protocol, hopefully normative behavior. I raised that in Singapore. Should I actually open an issue for that?
I don't know if we. I don't see an open issue for that.
Yeah. So should I open one? I
Sure.
think I just mentioned it. Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Tommy, were you trying to say something else?
Oh, I was just looking at what the issues were for implementation. I don't think there's anything particular we should discuss. There's a couple things that are ready for text and need some input there. I think there is one that is assigned to Gory, one that's assigned to Max. I guess it would be good if people do have time to do any issues that they do have assigned to them for implementation prior to the next call, just so we can make sure we're starting off with a relatively clean slate.
Yeah, and identify if there's anything that requires discussion.
Yeah. I think right now there's nothing that's like a large discussion point, but if people do have thoughts, for example, like the one that Jonathan brought up, having an issue for it sooner than later will help us process that and triage that.
Okay. Well, I think this has been a super productive call, and I think that we should declare victory.
Yeah, Aaron, before we close the meeting, can you summarize what was said about the security draft? Authors are gonna. I mean, I started the recording a bit later, so just for the record, I mean, if somebody would listen to this one later.
We're gonna open some issues on the remaining comments, and then we're gonna assign them to like authors, and then work on those in like early January. And then we didn't say that, but hopefully get a revision ready in January, right?
Yep.
Okay, so the revision ready by January. Okay.
No, not by January, in January.
In January. Okay.
Let's aim for like first couple weeks of January.
Yes.
Have the revision out, and then we should be good to go.
Okay, great.
Sounds good. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Have a great holiday, and we'll see you in a few weeks.
Thank you. Everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Happy holidays.
Holidays.